Hello tanks and tankettes, and welcome to a view replay courtesy of, well, it's either Vito Leone or possibly Vito 1, or possibly some other combination that I haven't thought of, but we're just going to go with Vito for simplicity's sake. So they're in the Panzer 38 NA, which is not a tank you see that many replays of. It's not an especially great tank at tier 4, especially when it can get matchmaking like this, but Vito's going to be doing something a little bit interesting with it today. Now the tank itself, typical tier 4 light tank, it's got a 47mm gun, 60 average damage, it's around 60 average pen. I think the APCR does roughly double that, so it's worth packing a fair amount of it, but of course it's low caliber APCR, so it's going to be rather disproportionately expensive for the actual amount of damage that it does. He's also got it set up with camo and binoculars, which, I mean, it's a way when you get this kind of matchmaking to maybe try and pick up some extra spotting damage, but it's not really a scout per se, it's just a low tier light tank. It's not especially fast, doesn't have an especially good view range, and of course it doesn't really have a lot of armor, so he really has to be cautious here. This could turn very nasty very quickly. You know, there's an SU-100 that's been spotted down here. That could completely obliterate this tank with one shell. So, you know, all the joy of being bottom tier, it really does quite constrain you. So there's that SU-100. And maybe he could go for a cheeky shot, but instead he decides, nope, just going to pull back. Don't like the look of that. They could just turn around and blap me with one shell. So goes from one rock to another rock, and actually gets a tiny bit of spotting damage in the process. Now that T28 is something that he can pen quite easily with this gun, but maybe not so much at this range. Even with armour as bad as the T28s, you know, a small caliber gun with not a lot of pen, a little bit of angling was all that was required to make sure that that bounced. However, now that T28 is dead, courtesy of Vito's allies, they've spotted an opportunity, because the enemy team has 3 artillery. Now, when you think of somebody doing this in a light tank, it's typically a rather faster light tank, although it's not like this thing is slow exactly, but 50 kph isn't that fast in the scheme of things. But yeah, he's spotted this chance to just whiz right down the middle, and this is probably one of the very few maps where you can still kind of get away with this if there's this hole in the enemy lines. So he goes for the most dangerous one first, the tier 5 N41, and it's going to take multiple shots, but not that many. It's not like artillery has a huge amount of hit points. So there's one down, of course. This Panzer Soufflé is rather aware of his presence, but again, dispatched with ease, and then that just leaves the Birch gun. And again, this is going to take a couple of shots, but yeah, the Birch gun is completely screwed. Now, with a slightly bigger gun, some HE might have been a bit more effective in terms of taking these arties down quicker, but with 47mm HE, maybe not so much. So that's 3 artillery dead. That's a medal. He's also gotten himself a whopping 620 damage, but, you know, having killed 3 artillery, that's going to be decent for the score screen. Meanwhile, the rest of his team has been not faring that well. They're struggling a bit. They're getting pushed back. There was an AT2 that followed him down the middle, but this, I mean, at least gives Vito a chance to get some shots into people's rear armour if his teammates can just hold on long enough, if they don't get completely overrun. And it is just going to be peppering away for tiny amounts of damage at a time, but, you know, sometimes that's enough to make a difference if it's against already damaged tanks, like this T-34-85. But you'll see, even against the rear armour, you know, this range, yeah, APCR. Definitely needs the APCR. So one more with the high roll. Well, it's a high roll, but not high enough. Finishes him off for the last 2 health. I mean, it's a low caliber gun, at least it fires quickly, I suppose. It's got that going for it. But if he wants to shoot at something else, he's going to have to move up. And that's actually, you know, it's tier 6 tank he just took out with a rather dangerous gun in this context. So that has helped his team out. Now, he could be being a little more aggressive here maybe, but you can understand if they're feeling still a little bit cautious. This is still a piddly little tier 4 light tank in a tier 6 game after all, but well, there's another target, and again with the APCR, but no, the front of the SU-100 at this range is a non-starter. The side armour, on the other hand, well, that'll do nicely. Now he slightly flubs his leading, his aim lead at that point. The SU-100 was more or less stationary, and the T-34-85 wasn't moving that quickly, but that T-34 traversing across there was a bit too much for him to follow accurately, but never mind. They've basically won this at this point, and all that's left is this KV-1. And he's coming up behind this guy, and he's just taken a big hit, so, you know, 1 or 2 lucky hits. He gets a low roll, but as it is, no, 1 is all that's needed, or 1 penning hit. He has to deliberately aim at the lower part of the rear armour in order to get that 100+ penetration to work. So there it was, an ace tanker, a Dimitri's medal, an All-X medal, and a Top Gun. 6 kills! I mean, you know, if you manage to sneak through the enemy lines and then get to shoot at everybody's rear, that was some good, you know, manoeuvring, some good planning there. He saw that opportunity and he went for it, and it paid off fine style. And it's not a result you typically expect to see in the Panzer 38 NA, but there you go. It just goes to show, if you're paying attention, if you're looking for those gaps in the enemy lines, if you've got yourself positioned advantageously, then you can make things happen in tanks that you wouldn't necessarily think were really suited for it. And in that case, most of the tier 4 non-scouty lights would have not done that well necessarily there. But he made that work. You know, if it was something like a Lux, for example, or a T50, something with a bit more speed, you'd maybe expect to see that a bit more, but not with a 38 NA. So, yeah, I was quite entertained by that, and hopefully you were too. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, you can leave any comments below, you can hit the like button, you can sub to my channel if you haven't already, and, as always, stay tuned for more.